Into news and views. The time is 13 minutes past 9 Central African time. And we're going to be switching gears now to a very, very important story because calls are intensifying for South Africa to halt coal exports to Israel as activists warn that the country risks complicity in the genocide in Gaza. The South African BDS coalition has launched an energy embargo campaign, essentially arguing that South African coal is helping power Israel's electricity grid, which in turn is used to commit a genocide against the people of Palestine. And despite all of these calls, and Pretoria leading a genocide case at the ICJ against Israel, data shows that coal exports from South Africa to Israel have not only continued, but in some cases increased significantly. And this is raising serious questions about the gap between the political stance that our country has taken and the economic practice. We are now joined by a lawyer assisting the SAPS Coalition's Energy Embargo campaign, Attorney Sirhaan Khan, to help us unpack the legal, political, and moral implications of this growing pressure. Mr. Khan, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it. Welcome to Salam Media.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
No, the pleasure is all ours. And I think we'll get into it. What is at the core of the demands that the SAPS coalition is making when it comes to that energy embargo campaign that has been launched? What exactly are you calling on the South African government to do?
Yeah, so we've provided a very factual and comprehensive legal analysis of South Africa's continued coal exports to Israel. And we argue that this specific trade is not neutral and it is not consistent with our constitutional obligations as well as our duties under international law. South Africa has taken a very strong legal position globally by approaching the ICJ, alleging that Israel is committing genocide. And what this means is that South Africa has formally recognized the seriousness of the situation and has placed itself on record in this regard. What the report argues in us is that is our position, I mean, can we continue exporting coal into a system that helps sustain what we have already called a genocide? The report details precisely just how much coal South Africa since October 2023 has exported approximately 3 million metric tons of coal to Israel. And this coal fuels generates electricity for Israel, which then directly feeds into the IDF's genocidal military operations, as well as entrenching the illegal occupation by providing electricity to illegal Israeli settlements while simultaneously preventing the provision of electricity to Palestinians, both in Gaza and in the occupied territories. What we argue is that this is completely in contradiction to the position our country has taken, and that our legal obligations demand that action be taken by the government, particularly in circumstances where the government has full knowledge of the situation and the crimes that Israel is committing, has now, with the submission of this report, a full analysis of that relationship between coal and the genocide and the illegal occupation, as well as apartheid and further abhorrent crimes committed by Israel. And the government itself has the legal authority and regulatory capacity to stop these exports. And it is now incumbent on the government and the DTIC minister who has these powers to use them to stop sending our coal to a country accused of committing genocide, and which in reality is committing genocide.
And from a legal standpoint, could South Africa be seen as being complicit with this genocide if it continues exporting coal to Israel? And also from a legal standpoint, what laws or whether they're domestic or international could be used to justify the halting of these coal exports?
Yes, so there is an argument that providing providing strategic and sensitive raw materials, which really provide Israel with the capacity it needs to carry out the genocide, that by failing to take action to stop that material aid and support, that there is a potential argument to be made around complicity within the system. South Africa, Israel electricity generation through coal was 26%, sorry, 26% of Israel's electricity was generated from coal in 2025 and 33% in 2024. On the flip side, South Africa's coal exports to Israel only make up under 3% of our total coal exports. So by stopping our coal from going to Israel, it directly complies with South Africa's obligations under the Genocide Convention and international law to prevent and punish genocide and to ensure that it is not aiding or assisting in the genocide by providing Israel with the fuel that it needs to carry out these actions. And that is the legal argument based that in terms of international law, we feel like it is unambiguously clear that these coal exports fuel the genocide. Furthermore, the constitution of our country directly incorporates international law into our legal framework. In doing so, international law becomes binding on the use of public power and in South Africa. So by failing to meet international duties, South Africa the government is directly violating its constitutional obligations. And yeah, then in terms of domestic law, our argument pretty much is around the Minister of the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition's powers to stop these exports. We argue that under the International Trade and Administration Act, under Sections 5 and Section 6, the minister has the specific legal authority to stop the export of specific goods, which in this case would be coal, to a specific final destination, which would be Israel. And this would be done within the public interest and in order to ensure that South Africa complies with its obligations under international and constitutional law.
And would that be a response to government who may argue that trade is conducted by private companies? Would that absolve the state of any kind of responsibility? The fact that this is not government to government partnerships, but it's private entities, private companies that are doing this trade with Israel?
No, we completely reject that argument in our report. These exports don't happen in a vacuum, and private corporations don't have, the right to trade as they please. They themselves have to comply with both international and constitutional law. But more so, this trade happens within a state-regulated system. It's the government that controls export permits. It's the government that regulates the ports, and it therefore has the authority over which goods can be exported and to which countries. So the responsibility, we argue, ultimately lies with the government, and that the state has both the legal authority and practical mechanisms in terms of existing legislation to intervene. And if the state chooses not to act where it has the power to do so, then that is not neutrality. That is a specific decision that the government is making, despite having the full knowledge of the situation in Palestine, as well as the contribution that coal has into that unlawful situation. And yeah.
There's an argument that's always been put forward when this conversation is brought. The issue of jobs, the issue of South Africa's economy, which is still very much in need of foreign direct investment. And this embargo could ultimately take away from jobs that, the people that are at the bottom of the barrel when it comes to this food chain are going to be the most affected. How do you respond to that? The fact that it's workers that will be affected, it's people that have families that are going to be, cut out of jobs and won't have any kind of income. A response to that?
Yeah, so we actually argue that there shouldn't be a big economic impact on the industry as well as workers. As mentioned, the specific exports to Israel make up less than 3% of South Africa's total coal exports, and South African coal is in high demand, particularly considering the consequences of Israel's illegal war in Iran, and now this global energy crunch, which we as South Africans will soon be feeling. And we also put forward the argument that when it comes to the prohibition against genocide and South Africa's duties to stop and do everything in its power to stop the genocide, that the implications that may come from an energy embargo would be manageable, particularly in light of the fact that the market share of coal to Israel is small, and that we've got constitutional and international obligations to ensure that we are not fueling a genocide and not profiting from a genocide by selling coal. And yeah, I think that that answers it.
No, it does most definitely. We've seen countries like Colombia almost move to restrict, if not halt, coal exports to Israel. Are there lessons that South Africa can learn on how they went about it, and what could be the most effective way to go about enforcing this embargo?
Yeah, no, precisely. We further argue in the report that the situation between Colombia and South Africa are no different from each other. The Colombian government, the president of Colombia issued a presidential decree in 2024 to ensure that Colombian coal does not go to Israel, and then reinforce that decree in 2025 to ensure that, because corporations were using loopholes to still take Colombian coal to Israel, the Colombian president strengthened that decree to ensure that no Colombian coal goes to Israel. Now, at that time, Colombia was the largest exporter of coal to Israel. The Colombian government cited the fact that coal is used to kill Palestinian children as a reason for this embargo. And Colombia and South Africa are co-chairs of the Hague Group, which is a group of countries that have come together to use all measures possible to try and stop the genocide in Israel's unlawful conduct. And it's very contradictory to see now that South Africa has taken the position of the largest exporter of coal to Israel, where their co-chair member has stopped that trade. And South Africa actually, I'm not familiar with the laws in Colombia, but South Africa has a very clear the very clear legal authority and powers to stop this trade if it so wanted to. And government should do that, because by jumping on the vacuum left open by Colombia and now sending more of our coal to Israel, it directly undermines what the Colombian government has done and directly undermines the commitment South Africa has made under the Hague Group. So Colombia serves as a good example of how a state can use its legal powers to stop being complicit in international crimes.
What has been the interaction with these private companies that are the ones that are at the heart of the story here, the likes of Glencore, the likes of Africa Rainbow Minerals, when it comes to this embargo and what you guys are putting forward? Have they responded accordingly? Have you interacted with them in any way?
So apart from the South African BDS coalition having protests directly outside Glencore's head offices in Melrose Arch, which has happened, I think, towards the end of last year, was happening on a weekly basis. Glencore has not tried to engage on this issue. My understanding from the Glencore AGM, which happened in Switzerland, is that the position of the company is pretty much that they don't know what happens with the coal when they export it, and it's not their responsibility. And we address the responsibilities of corporations both under international law and domestic law in the report. But our action in this regard is directed at the state, because we do not believe that it is up to Glencore to decide whether or not they choose to send coal to Israel, but it is in fact incumbent on the government to take action against any corporations who effectively, through their trade practices, fuel an ongoing unlawful situation in Palestine.
Mm-hmm. Finally, before I let you go, Sirhaan, what are the next steps if government does not act? Will there be further legal action or just general escalated pressure? And in what form would that be in?
So we have provided the DTIC minister with a very comprehensive legal analysis, legal and factual analysis, and we hope that the minister and the department and the other government departments within the supply chain read this report and then take action. We've given government 2 weeks or just over 2 weeks to come back to us with their decision as to whether or not the minister will use his lawful authority in a just way to stop these exports. And we will wait to hear from the DTIC regarding their decision. We need to say that we are very proud at the same time of our government's position in taking this matter to the ICJ, and we hope that the minister will use the information now before him to use power lawfully to meet these obligations. And should we receive no meaningful feedback, because we have on a few occasions previously tried to have meetings with the department, we will consider legal remedies and further pressure points to take should we not receive a positive response.
There you go. Considering that note, but I'm sure we'll be chatting again to get updates. Attorney Sirhaan Khan, really appreciate you giving us your time.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
There you go. Yeah, I think a very, very important announcement there, and one that all South Africans need to be looking at with a very, very keen eye. The fact that we're preaching one thing at the ICJ, we've come heads and shoulders above everyone else when it comes to making sure that that ICJ case of plausible genocide against Israel is put forward. There are many countries that are supporting South Africa in that regard. And then we turn around and become Israel's biggest coal supplier, coal which is in turn used by the IDF to bomb children, to bomb helpless men and women who are cornered and have no way of defending themselves. And it's just an oxymoron. It's a comedy of errors from our government. And I think what's interesting for me is the counter argument that's always been put forward. The fact that, jobs are going to be lost. South Africa needs the foreign direct investment. You just heard it won't have that much impact on our economy. In the greater scheme of things, Israel is a very tiny country. If you take a look at their land mass, or the one that they've stolen, they're very tiny country, and us exporting coal to them won't even make a dent on our economy, won't make a dent on foreign direct investment. So it's just a matter of principle at this point. And I think a bit more pressure needs to be put on our government, more pressure needs to be put on organizations like Glencore and Africa Rainbow Minerals to make sure that they're taken to task, because we can't go out into the world and preach one thing, that there's a genocide that's happening and that the world needs to pay attention to the mass murder of men, women, and children in Gaza, and we turn around and sell the means of that genocide to happen, which is cool, for everything to happen, for Israel's IDF to structure these missions and to have all of the expensive equipment that they use to raid homes and to target their missiles. That's South African coal that's being used. That's coal that comes from here, and it's innocent men of South Africa that are being used as a proxy to ultimately, if you look at the value chain, they're used as a proxy to murder men, women, and children. And South African workers, mine workers specifically, have made it clear and unequivocal that they're against this genocide. But because of the system and how it has been designed, they are now directly involved in it. So I think it's a very, very important story to look at. It's very, very important for us as South Africans to continue putting pressure on our government and to make sure that, like Colombia did, there's a complete energy embargo on Israel. We shouldn't be doing business with them at any level, never mind coal. And with that, we're going to take a quick break. News and views will continue after this.